my kako, everyone. Welcome back to the Moana Nui Podcast. My name is Moana, and it's good to be back with everyone tonight. I can't believe we are in the last week of January already. um, but tonight we're here for our monthly mental health series. And tonight we're going to be talking about battling imposter syndrome. Um, but before we do that, once again, let me introduce myself. My name is Moana. For those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, I am the founder of the Moana Nui Podcast. I am a children's book author for the Adventure of Nakoa Nohea children's book series, publisher for Wildcard Chronicles comic book series, and champion and advocate for our Indigenous and BIPOC communities. Tonight, I am joined by my amazing partner, sister, partner in crime, woman I cannot live without, my sis, Dana.
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight on our last Thursday of January. For those that may or may not know me, I am a cosplay event and con staff photographer for cons such as MomoCon, AWA, Dragon Con, Ranger Stop and Pop, and more. I also do a little voice acting, event planning, and a whole lot of other stuff behind the scenes. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the Renaissance woman of our time, the founder of the show, the woman that has more balls in the air than a clown in the circus. The amazing, the beautiful Moana.
Yeah, and no matter how many times she says that, she always cracks me up. But awesome. But before we get started, there's a couple Kickstarter projects that we want to share with all of you guys in case you haven't seen them yet. Great creators, friends of ours, some folks who have been on the show, and some who haven't. So, we're always looking for new voices and creative perspectives to share with all of you. So the first one is a children's book series called Another Reason to Smile. And this one is by Javier Cruz Winnick. He is a Puerto Rican children's book author based out of New York City. And his children's books series is about a girl named Luisa who goes on adventures throughout the city. It's a really fun book. This particular book is a spin-off of his main series. My brain is farting right now, and I can't remember the name of the character of this one. It starts with an A. But I'm excited because this one brings a little bit more of the Afro-Caribbean perspective into the story. So really looking forward to checking out this book. I'm already a backer on the project, so I invite all of you to kind of check it out and see if it would be up your alley as well.
Exactly.
Yes. Let's see. Okay, another one. This one is for an event, not a book, but an event. So our friends over at HBC UConn, Dana is actually a part of the team helping them out too. This is a convention, a comic book convention, first of its kind. Last year they had a virtual. This year is a hybrid, in person, and some virtual content too. So this will be taking place in April. They're raising monies to help make the con even better. So the con is not contingent on this money, but it will help.
Exactly.
So the event's going to go on regardless of whether or not the Kickstarter is successful or not. So just want to make that clear because I know sometimes.
But we know it's going to be successful because we know anything that comes on the Moana Nui podcast is going to be successful.
Absolutely. And Dana's on the team. So I know that she is helping to position them to be successful on Kickstarter as well. So our friend Cece the Greek Geek, for those of you who might know her, Wendell Smith, who's actually going to be on our next panel tonight. And then who else? Help me, Dana, because I can't remember everybody on the team. I don't want to leave anybody out.
There are several others behind the scenes that work at various other locations around the U.S., but those are the ones you will know the most. Also, supporting the event, you'll have people, cosplayers such as Tranquil Ashes. You're going to have several other cosplayers and other people within the community that is helping to spread the word and help build it. So definitely pledge. Today you have until February 21st. So if you're concerned about your money, like all these Kickstarters, they do not take the money once you pledge. It will take it once the Kickstarter is fulfilled on that final day. So you definitely have time for that.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, so I'll shout the other two later at the end of the show. I want to make sure we have time to talk with Shae. It looks like she is ready to go now, and let's bring her on.
All right.
I have no idea which one of my cameras is actually working.
So I would let me see. Kick. There we go. Yep. It should be good now.
All right. I feel like I don't know which one is working. Hi.
I chose one.
Hello. Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Yes,
Yay for
good
technical difficulties.
Yes, it is. You know, it is the era that we live in, but
exactly.
we persevere
despite the odds.
We may work show. Yes,
exactly.
I feel like it's been quite a minute. When was the last time we had?
It was. I want to say that the last time that we got to record was in November.
Yeah, because we took a break for the holiday. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Awesome. Well, it is good to be back. I'm excited to talk about tonight's topic because, you know, this is a topic, imposter syndrome, that 80%, at least 80%, it's probably more closer to 100%, but it's something that every single person experiences in life.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't know what it is, because I actually never heard of this particular term until probably like within the last 3 years or so. But I definitely know I experienced the feelings. So let's start by talking about like what is imposter syndrome and what can cause it.
Give me 2 seconds.
Sure.
Put my glasses on because all of a sudden I can't see with all my lighting on.
Uh-oh. Oh yeah, your mic did go. Oh yeah, your mic did go.
With us, guys. See.
Well,
now the imposter syndrome in me would be wondering, like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? I look so silly right now. You know, it's that voice in your head that like makes you doubt. It's a lot of self-doubt.
Yes. And I know Shae will go into it further to really explain how it is, because all of us probably have experiences, especially if you're in the creative field, or anyone that has to be inventive. That you have that. So whether you're in IT, whether you're a writer, an artist, all that, we all have experienced it, and you may not have known what the term was. And a lot of it is definitely trying to figure it out and overcome it, because as we have learned over the past few years, mental health and everything has come to the forefront, and a lot of people who did not realize they were suffering from depression and various other things are starting to learn more about it. So this podcast, along with other avenues, is trying to help everyone in the audience to learn more about these type of terms, what it is, how it affects you, and how you can, as Shae's term goes, to do better. You're gonna, do more requires better. Exactly. So you got to give that 50% or more. So as we were as Moana was saying, she was asking, as far as for those that may not know the term or heard of the term, what does imposter syndrome mean and what can cause it?
So, and hopefully my audio is working, because on mine I'm having a delay. So, but God bless technology. So imposter syndrome, we'll say it's just what happens when you're thinking, or rather when you're afraid that wherever you are, especially professionally or in your social circles, where you think they're gonna find out I don't belong here.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna find out I don't know what I'm doing. They're gonna discover that this is all just a lie, you know. And it's one of those things that's really hard to deal with, because asking for help would actually require admitting that maybe it's true. More often than not, it's not. It's just a feeling, because quite frankly, if you got to wherever it is that you are, it's because you do know what you're doing, or because you did, you passed your exams, or you interviewed well, or whatever. And the situation is such that you did prove that you actually belong wherever it is that you are. So more often than not, the imposter syndrome is a lie. The imposter syndrome is the lie. The actual reality of the situation is the truth. And the imposter syndrome is very convincing because it lies so well.
Yes.
Really, ultimately, it's a form of a deeper form of insecurity that you can really talk yourself out of. Thank goodness, right? So you can be like, well, I did do this interview, and well, I did pass those exams, or, I did spend however many times learning this field. I have spent whatever many years doing this thing, which is an odd example, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Cosplayers, for the community, you might be out there thinking, oh, I don't really belong here. Whatever you're cosplaying isn't genuine enough, or it isn't handmade enough, or it's those kinds of sentiments where you're thinking to yourself, I'm not enough. Whatever it is that I am as I am isn't enough to justify wherever it is that I am. So that's the foundation, basically, of imposter syndrome.
No.
And like I said, the objective there is just to remind yourself, hey, I've been doing this long enough. And you know what? Even if it's your first time, it's not that you don't necessarily belong there. It's that you haven't had a chance to experience whatever it is that you're there for yet. So don't believe the lie.
Now, which I honestly feel it plays a good part of it, but our infamous keyboard warriors, those naysayers that says, oh, it's got to be this, or you're because especially social media and stuff, that you're seeing the naysayers, that I feel that has a lot to impact into people having imposter syndrome. What is your view, or your thoughts of how social media and outside sources can increase the risk of you having imposter syndrome?
I'm not going to say increase the risk. I'm going to say intensify what's already there. Your imposter syndrome is more than likely not going to be something that's going to be recent. It's going to be something that you've probably had for a really, really long time about just about everything you've ever done. So if it's, I'll just use myself as an example for safety. Professionally, if I'm feeling like I don't know what I'm doing as a therapist. Going online and having someone online telling me you don't know what you're doing isn't going to necessarily increase. It's just going to confirm what's already there.
Mm.
It's going to intensify feelings that are already existing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and just preemptively answering the question, I guess, when we're talking about how social media, because there is a thing that happens with social media, and especially for those who require, we'll say, validation from social media to be able to do what they do, for example, what we're doing right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
We require the viewers, we require the commenting, we require the interaction in order to, get internet famous or whatever you want to call it, right? So we require that feedback from the internet or from the people on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we are expecting feedback, a part of the existing situation is going to be where the back of your mind or the front of your mind is going to be telling you, oh, you don't belong here. You don't know what you're doing, right? And then you will skip all of the great feedback that you got and cue in on the one thing that confirms what what the negative part of your mind was telling you were expecting. Like, see, they see it. They discovered me. And it's true that I don't really belong here. Completely forgetting, there were 50,000 other comments that were so, uplifting or supportive or congratulatory. Or in those situations where it's the one voice that we're looking to validate. So, for example, taking it out of the concept or of the internet, if you're looking for validation from a parent, or if you're looking for validation from a significant other, or you're looking for validation from a best friend or whatever, right? You're looking for a validation from that one specific person, and they don't give it. Or at least they don't give it in the way that you were expecting, or they don't give it in the way that you wanted to. That will also act as confirmation. See, you really don't know what you're doing. But not increase the chances, just intensify what's already there.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So with that, tell us what the signs or symptoms of imposter syndrome.
We're looking at a lot of negative self-talk. Most of imposter syndrome, and when I say most, I mean more than 80% of your imposter syndrome is going to be you talking to you. It's going to be that little voice inside your head saying, ha, you messed up again. See, that's why you're not supposed to be doing this. See, you always do this. That's why you can't. You're no good. You're not good enough. Such and such is doing so much better than you are. You should be here instead of there. For my gamers out there, you're wasting your time playing games on Steam or Stream. Wait, yeah, I was right the first time. Playing games on Steam. You should be going out and getting a real job like your mother told you to. It's your own voice that's going to be in the back of your head or in the front of your head or sitting on your shoulder, depending on what your imagery prefers. That's what it's going to be. More than 80% of it is going to be you talking to you. And the other is just you looking for confirmation from the outside world. And often completely missing or either missing or ignoring or dismissing all of the positivity that you get instead. If it's something professional, you'll be ignoring that degree that you have on the wall that tells you that you know what you're doing. If it's something social, it's going to be you ignoring the fact that your friends love and want to hang out with you and take time to have conversations with you and invite you to events and such.
Mm.
It's going to be those moments where you're thinking to yourself, oh, it would be really great to go and have this particular meal that I really enjoy. And then your inner voice telling you about how you shouldn't even leave the house because nobody wants to see you, or whatever the case is. And notice that a lot of the examples that I'm using probably also sound like depression, probably also sound like social anxiety. Because imposter syndrome is highly correlated and comorbid with things like depression and anxiety and social anxiety.
Which is interesting because those are also, well, at least the social anxiety part, I think some of that is also correlated with being an introvert, right? Which is also correlated with like creatives and people who are doing new things, and so like, you know, the chance for the imposter syndrome is even higher because there's not like, am I doing, you know, at least for me, like I find myself being like, am I doing this right? I'm not doing it like that person though. Should I be doing it like that person, or should I just be doing it in my own way and, you know, blazing my own trail? Those are some of the things that like I personally, you know, deal with when I'm creating my children's book series, you know. And Ryan and I talk about this all the time. I'm like, some parts of me is telling me like I'm not following the mold, right? But then I have to remind myself, like, I don't want to follow the mold. Like, I'm trying to do something different. You know, I'm trying to distinguish myself. So yeah, it's a tricky thing for sure.
Yes. Now, I saw online about articles about female imposter syndrome. Have you heard of it? And if so, what makes it different from the quote unquote regular imposter syndrome?
That's a good question. Let me move on over to Google here.
What is female imposter syndrome?
In this moment,
Ryan?
we're going to recognize that I could potentially have a moment of imposter syndrome. Like, dang, she just got this question. I should probably know this. See, you don't know what you're doing. That's what Google's for. Nobody expected you to actually memorize the entire DSM-5.
You're right. No.
So, yes.
Yes, we can all learn something new, even though we are an expert in our field. That's
Yes.
something I was talking to one of my team members today. You know, I'm like, oh, this is good. You know, she was talking to me about something that I didn't know about. I'm like, oh, tell me more about that, because I don't know what that is. And I love learning from my team too. You know, so I'm kind of like being vulnerable to them. Like, I don't have to know everything as your leader. You teach me too, right? It's not all one way. But yeah, it's hard.
I'll try to read what when I was looking it up and everything, that it was in, let's see, where is it? When imposter syndrome was first talked about in the 1970s, it was thought it only applied to women. And
right.
And let's see. So, and then not until later on that it was, after further studies followed, and soon transpired that imposter syndrome applied equally to both men and women. It's just men weren't so willing to admit it.
Right.
And then
yes, in my very short bit of research here, I'm actually seeing some of the things that we would have seen in school back in the day. And the reason why it's not something that we consider anymore is especially because of the fact that we recognize that that's not actually a thing. Like one of those other diagnoses that popularized back in Freud's days was hysteria. Do we know what hysteria is? For those of us who don't know what hysteria is one of those diagnoses that was given specifically to women, that supposedly women are all, to a certain extent, crazy. But specifically, the diagnosis was if a woman is prone to hysterics, it is because of the menses or the menstrual cycle and an inability to reason and all kinds of other BS
Right.
that was specifically used to invalidate women's feelings and experiences on this planet, to the point where when PTSD became a thing, and they were trying to misdiagnose that away, one of the things that they used to suggest, especially to soldiers, before they came up with shell shock syndrome, was basically correlating some of these symptoms to men being hysterical. And so men would not report their experiences having to do with PTSD or then shell shock for fear that they would be basically called little girls. So it's a thing. But female imposter syndrome is basically just what they were using once upon a time to suggest that women are all insecure and probably shouldn't be in the workplace anyway.
Funny how some of those ideas still hang around today.
Exactly.
I didn't say it.
Well, it's very true, because with me being ex-military, I remember, as far as drill sergeants, always getting after the men and all of us that you're show some side of weakness if you have a mental break or anything like that. So it was often at that time talked down. You were made lesser than. Or my favorite is if myself was out doing some of the guys in my unit, it's like, you're below
you gonna let this woman after you?
Exactly. So it can't.
And the answer should be military. Yes, I am.
Exactly. But it was interesting, like learning. As we're learning about these things, it's like we through different things that's supposed to be male dominated for so long, they kept those stigmas going on that was under different guise, and of course, which also leads to a lot of men not opening up because of the paranoia of being labeled as being weak, being like a girl, and things like that, because of the fact that they're dealing with these emotions, these things in their mind that they're trying to act like nothing's going on so they don't get those labels.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. It is definitely a crying shame that in society we still have a problem with men crying.
Right.
It's really important, especially when it comes to the conversation about imposter syndrome, and because really what we're talking about, like I said, it's insecurity, right? But more often than not, where we see the most imposter syndrome comes in the professional world. And it has to do with whether or not you can succeed.
Yes.
And our success, especially in this society, is highly dependent on things like how much money we're making, how quickly we can climb the so-called, professional ladder or what have you, or, get these promotions or get the raises, or, just basically improve our chances to being able to take care of and support ourselves and our families. And so this imposter syndrome can be really, really debilitating, especially in your work life, because it'll stop you, and especially since we're on it, women, from doing things like asking for a promotion. It'll stop women from doing things like asking for a raise. And let me rewind, demanding a promotion or demanding a raise or asking and requiring what it is that your labor is actually worth. There's one of the reasons that has been cited, at least publicly, as to why it is that there is a wage gap in women between men and women, is because women aren't willing to ask. Right? And if you're not willing to ask for what you want, do you really, quote unquote, deserve it?
Yes.
So, that's one of the arguments for why it is that maybe women don't, quote unquote, deserve to make equal pay for equal effort, right? Or, as it happens to often be, greater than effort, right?
Yes.
If you're not willing to ask for it, if you're not willing to demand it, if you're not willing to require it, is it something that you actually are, quote unquote, deserving of? And I keep saying, quote unquote, deserving. And that's, one of the other conversations I'd love to have when it comes to the idea of what people deserve. But especially as it relates to imposter syndrome, it is really important to understand that you wouldn't have gotten to where you are if you hadn't already proven yourselves worthy. Male, female, anyone in between, anyone outside of the box, anyone behind the box, whatever the box is, you wouldn't be where you are if you didn't earn that position. So bask in that glory and play that position. We're all technically on a stage, right? Life is a stage. We're all playing roles, and usually several of them simultaneously. Some we play better at other times than others.
Yes.
A little bit earlier today, I was attempting to play the role of really good driver and responsible driver, and unfortunately, the traffic would not allow. And so I had to be a little bit, I had to break a couple laws. So sometimes we just got to play that role, It is what it is. You have different roles, different acts, different positions to play, depending on whatever kind of way you try to, whatever visualization you prefer. See yourself in a sporty way, you're playing a position. If you're in the arts, maybe you're an actor on the stage. If you're one of those people who wears a lot of hats, then you wear a lot of hats. Whatever the case is, whatever you're most comfortable with, you play all of the positions, I'm sure, quite well. And sometimes you don't do so well. And as I explained to one of my clients recently, it's okay. Nobody's expecting you to be perfect every day. Just because you make one mistake today and maybe another mistake tomorrow and another one the day after that, it doesn't mean you don't belong where you are, right? It just means maybe you have a little bit more to learn.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up those perfectionist tendencies, because I was reading another article that was talking about the different types of imposter syndrome and how that can show up. And there were like 5 that they brought up. One was the superhero. 2,
That's my hat.
Yeah, like, 2 was the natural genius, so the person who like always has the answers. 3 is the expert. 4 is a perfectionist, and 5 is the soloist. And the soloist being the person who thinks they have to do everything by themselves.
Everything by themselves.
So I'm curious.
I
Out
know
of those
we've had
5,
that conversation before.
Yeah, I was gonna say out of those five, like which one, like do you relate to the most?
Um,
Sup-
yeah, definitely the superhero. That's how I ended up in mental health. Definitely the superhero. Sometimes I literally walk out of the day, walk out of my house, and in the back of my head I hear, "Here she comes to save the day." Yeah, totally the superhero. Totally the superhero. Most other
well,
people, or not most, but a lot of other people who feed my imposter syndrome, so to speak, would see me or treat me like maybe the expert or, you know, the expert or the perfectionist. The perfectionist is usually the one that gets attributed to folks negatively, but the expert is the one I personally consider the most dangerous.
mm,
Because in that moment where someone asks you a question and you don't have the answer, that's when the voices get the loudest.
yes, that's
In
true.
that moment where you make a mistake, those are the moments where the voices get the loudest. And last time I checked, nobody anywhere ever managed to make it through an entire life without ever making a mistake.
Right. Yes. Which
Because
is
I definitely see that, especially in the work, basically on what kind of job you have, those different imposter syndromes can kick in. Because, like, my daytime job as being an executive assistant, you're expected to be the superhero, the expert, the perfectionist, and a natural genius. And then if you make any kind of mistake, it is like I talked to my fellow admins and they said they hate doing performance appraisals because you literally have to put yourself out there. And then on top of that, it's like, you know, feeling like you're going to get crucified for making that one mistake back then that wasn't, that aspect, but it's often put in a lot of corporate and creative fields that mistakes are a negative thing. And if you cannot, balance everything, plus you're, still getting 8 hours of sleep and having work-life balance and handling your kids and your husband or your loved one and all this, it's like something's wrong with
And make
you.
sure you have both your matching shoes on every day.
that's right. Same socks.
Be a little thing. Be a little thing.
So I
Yep.
know me personally, it's like, especially when I started in the field, you question everything you do because you're so in work, especially if you heard someone else got in trouble for X, Y, or Z. It's like,
Mm,
oh, I got to be on my stuff because you see they're blowing this out of proportion. Now I got to make sure I am looking like I am, the newest thing, the best thing ever, all that. And,
Superhero with a cape on.
I'm so good that if you spoke to me in any language, I can be able to have a conversation with you and write it all in the email and documents too.
In a timely fashion.
yes,
Exactly.
that's right. That's right.
But it's interesting too at the same time because you hear from analysts and stuff that within women in those fields, they doubt themselves so much that it was like, I think it was like over 85% of most women won't apply for a job or go for a
Right.
promotion unless they meet more than 95% of this the requirements and everything in a job description. But I love the quote my boss was like, look, you need to have the confidence of a mediocre white man that only applies to a job that they only have 5% of the requirements.
That one line speaks English. Got it. Fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Check. I'm in. Yeah.
But it's so funny because she said, as a leader herself, she had to do that herself and put herself out there, because if you don't, she was like, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at So you have to do the same thing and not think, oh, I got to get this certification. I got to do this. I got to go ahead. Oh, trying to get in. And then at the same time, you got these jobs that expect everyone. My favorite is you just graduated college or you just got this X amount of experience, but it's not good enough according to their requirements. They tell you, oh, you need more experience. Oh, you need this and that. But
it's entry level.
exactly.
It's entry level, but please have 10 years worth of experience in the field. Huh?
Right.
And you'll get
entering
paid
what level exactly?
You're right.
with a master's degree and expect to get paid $9 an hour.
Yeah.
Please.
Like,
girl. Yeah, it's one of those things that it's the sad but true, and the crying shames, and but why don't you just, as my mother would say, why don't you just itis? Because you can ask all these questions and they all basically come down to the answer being, but why don't they just no, whatever the comes after, why don't they just no. The answer or the question is, what do I need to do to then fill in the blank? What do I need to do to be the best at this today? Not tomorrow, not next week, not better than such and such. No, just the best that I can do at this today. Mm-hmm. And the reason why it's important to ask yourself, what can I do to be the best or do the best that I can today, is because today your best might be, my socks don't match, but my shoes do. I made it out the house and I smiled to my boss as I walked past. Mm-hmm. Everything else might have fallen apart, but that's the best I got for today.
Right.
If you succeeded at that and managed to make it through the rest of the day without killing anybody, make that your success.
Yes.
If you wake up every morning and you ask yourself, what is the best that I can do today? You wake up and you're just like, I'm walking out the house singing to myself, here she comes to save the day. Okay, we're going to have to reel it back a little bit. Okay, we're not saving the day. That's not your job. Okay, yes, I'm talking to myself right now, but if it applies to you, please, the shoe fits, wear it, right? We're not saving the day today. Today, we might just try to save at least one day, and that day that you save had better be your own first. Mm-hmm. That is the only requirement for those of us who are the superhero, that you really need to be your own superhero first. Yes. Mm-hmm. If you just so happen to, get Timmy out of the well and, dodge a speeding bullet and jump over a small hill. If you just so happen to manage any of those heroic deeds, call it a win. Mm-hmm. And then tell the other voices in your head that where you end the day and you didn't save the day, tell those voices to shut the hell up, because you saved your day. You made it home. Mm-hmm. I somehow managed to not run over that idiot who was going so slow.
In the left
my
lane.
insurance is intact. Right. Hallelujah. I made it. Saved my day. That is my win for the day. Mm-hmm. I did not use my car to push other cars out of the way, especially since I only drive but a small sedan, and most of these cars that sometimes it's those smaller than mine cars where it's just like, if I just move you, you probably would actually move out of my way. Yeah. I have those moments. I don't get road ragey. I'm not the one who's going to be, throwing the finger up and cursing people out the window, but Man, sometimes I just want to move people out of my way physically. And I managed to not do it, and that is my win, at least for today.
Yes.
I saved my day and my car.
Yes.
Take the one you got it.
Exactly.
Yep, those
And
small
ignore the
wins.
Mm-hmm. Now, as we're getting to the top of the hour, one last question. Imposter syndrome can often be seen in the indie community. How can friends and family help their loved ones navigate through imposter syndrome?
Hard to swallow pill moment. If you are recognizing that your friend or loved one is in the moment of an imposter syndrome, shut up. That in that moment is the best form of support that you can give. Because what happens when they are in the moment, what happens to a person's psyche in the moment is the voices that are basically telling them you're not good enough, you don't do this well enough. Whatever it is that you say is going to be reinterpreted and retranslated into something negative.
Yep.
I don't look good enough. Well, you look great today. So you're saying I didn't look good yesterday?
Right. Right. Yes. Oh, so true.
Yes.
I think you did a great job. So you only think, you don't know? You've been doing this for so long. You think I should probably quit now, huh? In that moment, shut up. Don't agree, don't disagree. Just be there to listen. When they ask you a question, your response should probably be something about, well, what do you think? And whatever their response is, if it's in the negative, I'm not sure I agree with that. Tell me more. If it's something in the positive, then support the fuck out of that. You know, that makes sense. Tell me more. Tell me more stuff that makes sense. But offer no thoughts of your own other than that. Because your own thoughts are going to get translated into something that confirms whatever nonsense it is that the inner voices are going to be telling them. Even if, and believe me, it'll happen, even if you successfully manage to get through the conversation without providing additional fodder, a part of their voices are going to be like, the reason they ain't say nothing is because they agree. Because they know you can't do this. They didn't say anything because they know you're right. It's not going to matter in that moment what you say.
Yes.
Once the moment has passed now, find ways to reinforce whatever it is that they do need to hear once the moment has passed. So you're no longer in the moment of the imposter syndrome. They're no longer being down on themselves. You've moved on, right? They do something, even if it's small, like they went and they cooked themselves a meal. Especially with social media these days, everybody posting pictures, myself included, about the last meal that they cooked, right? I like to tell them myself. Congratulate that. Pick one thing. Don't just be like, oh, that's great. No generic answers. Oh my God, the way that pasta looks, like, was it really as al dente as it looks? Or was it really as perfect as it looked? Like, man, that looks like the way you did your vegetables, they're just so much brighter. Be very specific in the praise. So that they can now pay attention to, oh yeah, you know, I did try a little something different with the peppers this time, and yeah, I did that well.
Mm-hmm.
Very
It's
specific.
definitely, it's one of those areas also, like my current leader, she always says, when someone is in one of those moments, you have to sometimes ask that question: uh is this a time that you want me to listen, or do you want
Mm-hmm.
me to help you solve?
Yep.
Because a
Definitely,
lot
if
of
you're a
people
solver.
want to go instantly into solve mode, and it end up putting that person in a worse state because they just needed someone to
To
vent
listen.
off
Mm-hmm.
of
Yep,
their
yep.
frustration and just hear them out.
Especially especially for you heroes out there. I mean, us heroes out here. That might not be the moment that you need to be saving the day. Not actively, anyway.
Yes.
Sometimes the savior that they need is the quiet kind.
Mm-hmm.
So just
Def-
keep it in the back of the head. I'm here to save the day, but do quiet, quiet.
yes.
But
Yeah,
before I save the
it's
day, I
really
must
important.
listen to the problem.
Exactly.
I feel like
Sometimes
it's
saving the
gonna
day
be like
is
a
just
month from
listening.
now, and y'all are gonna hear my voice in the back of your head talking about that. Singing about saving the day. So
That's right.
And
yeah,
sometimes saving the day is just listening and being
Yes.
quiet.
Yes.
do so quiet.
Yes. I have a
Well,
coworker who's really good about that.
mhm,
Yeah.
that's good. Well, of course, we're at the top of the hour.
Mhm.
As everyone is seeing, as you're hearing from this conversation, definitely follow us on our YouTube page where you can see some of the past episodes we've had with Shae on past topics such as depression, grief, and more. So you can listen to those, especially if you have a loved one that who also is trying to figure something out. They can hear it, share it with them, but most of all, you can follow Shae on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Rain O Change, as you see at the bottom. You can follow her at either one of those to stay connected and also to reach out if you find that you need to book a virtual therapist. You don't have to be where she's located. You can see what
Nope.
her rates are and get yourself set up so you can start on the path of doing better.
And not every therapist is for everybody. You might like me, but not really want to have me as a therapist. If all you want is a reference for who you might want to be looking for, I can help you out with that too. Um,
Mhm.
it is a professional position of my own to say constantly, if you are human and you still have a heartbeat, you need therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not if you're depressed. It's not just if you're experiencing anxiety. It's not just if you're having a hard time at work. It's not just if you got some imposter syndrome going on. It's not just if you're grieving. It's, oh, I woke up today. It's a good day for therapy. Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Every day,
Exactly.
anytime. It's always a good day to find a therapist and talk some stuff out.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. Well, we thank Shae once again. For those that are following in our social media, please, you'll see that we have posted and also on our newsletter that we are trying to get your thoughts about upcoming
Mm.
topics, including topics you may want to hear with Shae that you need to get more understanding about. Send those to us. But also, if you're not getting the newsletter or finding out about that, you can sign up for our mailing list in the link you see on the screen or in your comment section, that you can sign up for our mailing list for the podcast, or for if you want to be updated on anything on our topics coming up for mental health that we have with Shae.
Mhm.
So definitely share that, sign up, and that way we can help you further with all these opportunities that we have within the podcast. But with that, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Please tune in at 8:30 p.m. Eastern for our panel. We're having our Devil Dogs, our Black Marine Corps soldiers, coming in to talk about being in the service, their experiences, and how to navigate as a person of color in the military if that is something you're trying to do. So definitely tune in at 8:30 p.m. tonight Eastern to hear more about that this evening. So we thank everybody for joining in. Moana, do you have any additional words you'd like to give right before we wrap up?
No, just thanks everybody for being with us. Thank you, Shae, as always, for sharing your wisdom and your superhero-ness with us.
Most definitely. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great evening, and we'll definitely see you at 8:30 tonight. Bye, everyone.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then. When they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No regard for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if we put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was the actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No regard for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.